Hey everyone. There may come a time when you need to leave town for a few days and maybe not be able to find a pet sitter or it's not convenient to get one. So I want to show you how you can get your chickens set up to be able to stay in their coop for a few days at a time and be fine. I don't recommend this if you have a really super tiny coop. We have a very roomy one, so it works out really well. But you want to make sure you have plenty of room for your chickens to still wander around and be comfortable and be able to get away from one another. But we have left our chickens for 3 to 4 days at a time and had it work out pretty well. It's not the ideal situation, but it can be done. So let me show you what we do. The biggest thing that chickens are going to need is water. They can go without food easier than they can water. So water is going to be your big thing. And depending on the time of the year, will also determine how you get that water ready. So let's go in and see what I have ready to go here. This time I'm leaving them and it's kind of cold, so I want to make sure that they have a heated water source. And in my case, I've got electricity, so I'm going to leave that heated water plugged in. Sometimes if it was going to be really cold, I would leave two, but this time it may not even get below freezing, so I just want that insurance that it's not going to freeze. Another thing you can do for water is snow. I've heard of people doing that. You can leave them a lot of snow in their coop if it's going to stay cold. You might even be able to do finely crushed ice if you're kind of on the edge. But this is what I do. And I also have a roosting area in my coop. And I'm going to put an extra big water on there. And I'm also going to leave an extra feeder on there. And plenty of areas for food and water in my coop. Because you always have that pecking order, and sometimes your bullies are going to start guarding the food and water, so I like to leave plenty of areas that they can get food and water so everybody gets a shot at it. These little bowls right here are actually double feeders that I get. I've got them at Tractor Supply. I think they're for goats or something, but I cut them in half, and I will nail them up on the sides of my coop, and I put food in there, and I also, this time I'm going to do water, because again, I'm concerned that they have plenty of water sources. So I'm all set up with all my different foods and waters. I'm going to just load them up with all this before I walk out the door. And like I said, they should be fine for probably we'll come back on the 4th day, about halfway through, so I think they'll be fine with that. Another thing I like to do is give them some extra treats, like this Flock Block is going to be something, you can see they're already actually pecking into it now. But that's something that keeps them busy. I might break it into a few chunks so there's a couple pieces of it that they can mess around with, because I don't want them to get bored. Eating eggs is a very real concern when they're in there like that. Another thing I'm going to do, I've got pumpkins that are kind of not doing so well, so I'm going to put a couple of those in the coop, and that's going to give them another source of moist food as well. And I also like to throw some apples in there. I think they eat them pretty quickly, but it's something I like to do. So I'm going to get that all set up right before I leave. Make sure they have plenty of food, plenty of water, that their bedding is, they've got some clean bedding in there. And I'm going to shut this coop up very tight, and then we will leave. So that's one way you can do it. Ideally, you got someone to check in on them, but it can certainly be done. I would say if it's summer, the same things apply, but you just want to make sure that you have that coop very predator-proof, since you're not going to be here to check on it. And finally, one thing I do is I do have a few people that if something happens, for instance, there's a snowstorm and we can't get home the day that we are, that I do have some people ready that can come by as well and just make sure that their water gets refilled. So that's, have plan B always ready as well. So thanks for watching, and if you're going on a trip, I hope you have a safe trip and a happy time traveling.